Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Narayanam Namaskritcha Navam Chaiva Narotamam Devim Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jayam Udirayat Nastaparishu Badrishu Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya Bhagavati Uttama Shloki Bhaktir Bhavati Naishtiki. Today we're reading from Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 8, Chapter 8, text number 2. Tam Agni Otrim Rishayo Jagriho Brahmavadina Yagyasya Devayanasya Medyaya Havise Nripa Tam Agni Otrim Rishayo Jagriho Brahmavadina Yagyasya Deva Yanasya Medyaya Abhishen Ripa Tam Agni Otrim Rishayo Jagriho Brahmavadina Yagyasya Deva Yanasya Medyaya Abhishen Ripa Tam Agnir Utrim Rishayo Jagriho Brahmavadina Yagyasya Deva Yanasya Medyaya Visen Ripa Ushayo Jagriho Brahmavadina Yagyasya Deva Yanasya Madhyaya Havise Nripa. Ladies. Tam Agni Utrim Rishayo Jagriho Brahmavadina Yagyasya Deva Janasya Medyaya Vise Nripa Tam Agni Otrim Rishayo Jagriho Brahmavadina Yagyasya Deva Yanasya Medyaya Vise Nripa Tam Agni Otrim Rishayo Jagriho Brahmavadina Yagyasya Deva Yanasya Medyaya Havise Nripa. Tam, that cow, Agniotrim absolutely necessary for the production of yogurt, milk, and ghee, to offer as oblations in the fire. Rishaya, sages who perform such sacrifices. Jagrihu, took in charge. Brahmavadina, because such sages know the Vedic ritualistic ceremonies. Yagyasya, of sacrifice. Deva Yanasya, which fulfills the desires to be elevated to the higher planetary system, which fulfills the desire to be elevated to the higher planetary system and to Brahmaloka. Medhyaya, fit for offering oblations. Avise, for the sake of pure clarified butter. Nripa, O King. Translation and purport by Srila Prabhupada. O King Parikshit, great sages who were completely aware of the Vedic ritualistic ceremonies took charge of that Surabhi cow, which produced all the yogurt, milk, and ghee absolutely necessary for offering oblations into the fire. They did this just for the sake of pure ghee, which they wanted for the performance of sacrifices to elevate themselves to the higher planetary systems up to Brahmaloka. Surabhi cows are generally found on the Vaikuntha planets. As described in the Brahma Samhita, Lord Krishna, on his planet, Goloka Vrindavan, engages in tending the Surabhi cows. Surabhir Abi Palayantam. These cows are the Lord's pet animals. From the Surabhi cows, one can take as much milk as one needs, and one may milk these cows as many times as he desires. In other words, the Surabhi cow can yield milk unlimitedly. Milk is necessary for the performance of yagya. Sages know how to use milk to elevate human society to the perfection of life. Since cow protection is recommended everywhere in the Shastras, the Brahmavadis took charge of the Surabhi cow, in which the demons were not very interested. Om Ajnana Timarandasya Gananjana Sarakaya Chakshuran Minitam Gena Tajmai Shri Guruve Namaha. I was born in the darkness of ignorance. My spiritual master has opened my eyes with the torchlight of knowledge. I offer him my respectful obeisances. Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prasthaya Bhutari Srimati Bhakti Vedanta Swami Tinamini Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravani Pracharini Nirvisesa Sannavadi Pasachari Satarini Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Sivasari Gaur Bhaktavinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. So I acknowledge the reality that unless the Vaishnavas are blessing me with their well wishes, there's not much I can deliver for the pleasure of the Vaishnavas. So I beg your mercy. Hare Krishna. My name is Ghosh Thakur Das. Yeah. And your name is Prabhupada Das. Yeah? Oh, okay. So there's a couple of points I wanted to talk about, very simple points. In the purport, Prabhupada talks about Brahma Rishis, or Brahmarshis, and Brahmavadis. And also the Surabhi cows are mentioned, and so that's one topic. And then the other topic is in contrast with the Brahmavadis' technique of spiritual understanding, we're going to elaborate more on our spiritual practices and understanding, mainly the Sankirtan Yagya, and how to practically apply it in our life so we can benefit from it. So as far as the Surabi cows are concerned, I don't think I can inform you much more than what you already know about them. Basically, they are Krishna's pet animal, like it says here. And they are also sometimes present in the material world and so on and so forth. And some sages had that cow, like I think Vashishta had one, and he was attacked by Vishwamitra Muni because of that. And Parasuram's father had a cow like this, and also there was a conflict with Katyava Arjuna, the great warrior who wanted to take the cow. So these are the stories in the Bhagavatam about these cows, which have also mystic powers. They can manifest warriors and to protect their proprietor like that. And they are utilized by the sages. So here, in the churning of the ocean of milk, they were acquired by the sages. So these sages are called Brahmavadis. Sometimes we hear the word Brahmavadi in Prabhupada's books, and it means someone who is not aware yet of Krishna's existence, but he's searching, and he may be a liberated soul, but he's not aware of the existence of Krishna. And it is understood that as soon as he gets to know about Krishna's existence, then he becomes devotional. Whereas a Mayavadi, even if he gets to know about the existence of Krishna, he doesn't believe in Krishna and mostly blaspheme Krishna, etc., etc., etc. So these particular sages here, they may not be in that category. I'm not sure about that, but we can read a couple of verses in relation to the Vedic ritualistic ceremony and the sages performing sacrifice to please the demigod. They were Brahmavadi may also mean they were worshippers of Lord Brahma. So this is the topic that I'm introducing the class with, but it's not really the topic I want to talk about. It's just like a warm-up. This is not really what the important point I want to talk about, but it's like a little warm-up before I get to the real point later on. But it's good to know a little bit theoretically a few things, to hear the sastras, different items that I heard in connection with this. So in the Bhagavad Gita, chapter 3, text number 10, there's a couple of verses. In the beginning of creation, the Lord of all creatures sent forth generations of men and demigods, along with sacrifice for Vishnu, and blessed them by saying, Be thou happy by this yagya sacrifice, because its performance will bestow upon you everything desirable for living happily and achieving liberation. And then the next verse, the demigods, being pleased by sacrifices, will also please you, and thus, by cooperation between men and demigods, prosperity will reign for all. So this is like a setup at the beginning of creation. Human beings are worshipping the demigod, and they get mutually benefited by the performance of sacrifice, materially and spiritually. So these sages, they wanted to be transferred to Brahma Loka. So there's two things when you get to Brahma Loka. Maybe you are, if you're a worshipper of Lord Brahma, and Lord Brahma is a pure devotee, then at the end of the creation, you go back home, back to Godhead with Lord Brahma, because you're a servant of a pure devotee. Therefore, you get the benefit of pure devotees association, and you go to the spiritual world. And if you're not like that, I don't really know what will happen, but at least in our particular universe, Lord Brahma is a devotee. He was enlightened by Krishna at the beginning of creation. So these Brahmavadis who were worshipping Brahma to go to his planet, they probably were devotees too. They were not like impersonalists or even ignorant maybe. And so they're not in the same category maybe as these people we're talking about here. So Sometimes also people end up in Brahma Loka because they're afraid of the destruction of the universe, the flame at the bottom of the universe. They become scorched by it, and they transfer themselves from higher planets in airship, not airship, but they have their own ship, and they transfer themselves to Brahma Loka. And sometimes people go to Brahma Loka just by the mere power of their yogic mystic power. They can go there. Sometimes you can go there if you know the process of traveling through the waters of the Ganges. People dip, because the Ganges go from the higher planetary system all the way down to the lower planetary system. So people can travel through the Ganges if they have the proper knowledge. Like the four Kumaras, they went to the bottom of the universe. And they got knowledge from Sankarshan, I think, and they came back through the water of the Ganges, and they transmitted this knowledge they received, and it became part of the Srimad Bhagavatam. Kumara Sampradaya is in the Srimad Bhagavatam, like that. And other ways also is by performing yagyas. And sometime in the Bhagavad Gita also it's explained that people accidentally may become liberated. Like if they depart this world at a certain astrological configuration of the planet, like when the sun is either in the southern hemisphere and the moon is at the right fortnight, and they live at they can go accidentally, they can go into not the Vaikuntha planet, but somewhere in the Brahman, I don't know exactly, but it's explained in Bhagavad Gita. And those who don't go at that particular time and are not devotees, they return to the earthly planet. So the planetary system also has a play in our destiny after we leave this body. The particular planetary system we're in is different demigods like the sun, the moon. These planets, they control sometimes our destiny if we're not totally a Mahabhagavat yet. So anyway, those different glimpse of philosophical content about the Brahma bodies. So now we're going to switch to the other topic I wanted to talk about, which is our process, and which is the performance of Sankirtan Yagya. So we are been rewarded somehow or gifted with receiving the Maha Mantra, and by Srila Prabhupada's mercy, and this is the Yuga Dharma to chant the holy name. So in this instance, we have to also acknowledge that we were quite handicapped. We're quite handicapped in Kali Yuga, that we're low-born, most of us, Kalosudra Sambhava, and we're mostly infected with the mode of passion and ignorance. So when we take up the chanting of the holy name, it will manifest itself. So the idea is most of the time we are blind to our defects because the mode of passion wants to promote in us the desire to be very important and very perfect and very competitive with others and very selected individual. Like all these ideas in the material world are promoted. Unless you're very successful, unless you're very important, unless you're very rich or very whatever material, you're a failure. So this is the tinge of the mode of passion is also reflected in our devotional life, that we want to show a pretentious reality, which is like a smoke screen in front of other people. In other words, we want to present ourselves more spiritual advanced than we are, And actually, we are not really looking into our defects. They're hidden underneath. And we're like a little bit cheated of actually making true spiritual advancement. So when we chant the holy name, of course, the first thing that happens is the clearing process takes place. And the first element of the clearing process is that your defects will show up. So a little bit like if you're in a room at midnight, there may be some obstacle in the room, a chair or a sofa or whatever, and then you can't walk, you're going to bump into them. But as the sun comes closer, the first thing that happens, you see these obstacles. So in our devotional life, the first thing that will happen, and the first thing means not maybe like the first week, maybe like after 30 years of chanting, you start to realize your defects and your anarthas. And it's a little bit interesting that all of a sudden you discover, because self-realization means direct perception of the self through realization. So if your self is covered, then the covering is going to show up first. Since it's a direct perception of the self, so whatever is covering the self, that's going to come out. Whether it's lust or envy or a lack of self-confidence in devotional life, a lack of enthusiasm or a lack of motivation to serve Krishna and just going along. Whatever it is, these things are going to come out. So, or you can call them anarthas. Jai Shishirada Madhava. So, the anarthas will come out, and as we know, there's a way to deal with anarthas, and it's has to do with the pleasure of our spiritual master. Yasha prasadat bhagavat prasado, yasha prasadana gati kutopi dvayam stuvam stasya yasastri sandyam vandi guru shri chararvindam. That our spiritual life is essentially in the hand of our spiritual master, and it depends on his pleasure, how much we can actually give him satisfaction by following his instruction, both in the sadhana part of our life and both in his order to distribute Krishna consciousness to other people. So these two factors play a role in how much we can satisfy our spiritual master. And when he's duly satisfied, then we get the leverage, or we get the proper currency or coins, gold coin, silver coin, whatever valuable we have to counteract the anarthas. So the anarthas are counteracted by service to the Guru and Krishna. Like even if there's offenses in chanting the holy name, the devotional service itself can counteract these offenses. Like an example given is that I think it's a true story. One time there was this person who was a forfeiter. He was making false banknotes, and then he was cashing in the money, and he was making false checks, and he was a crook. So he was caught by the police, and they put him in jail, 20 years. 20 years in jail. So he was like a couple of years in jail, and then one day he was in the jail superintendent office for whatever reason. And in the jail superintendent office, some commissioner came in with and put on the table some false note. And they didn't know if they were false or real, and also the checks, the check notes, currency note, they didn't know how to examine them. So they were like debating between one another, oh, this is a false, no, this is a real one, these are the false one. So, but the person who was a forfeiter, he knew. He said, actually, these are the wrong ones, the one with the fringe and the colors, these are real, but the other ones are. Anyway, he identified the notes. So that created a kind of impact or interest amongst the jail keeper. So he said, well, why don't you come back next week and do the same thing? We have more work for you. So they engaged him in government service inside the jail, how to decipher false notes from real notes. And he was doing that for quite a while, and then one day they called him over in the jail in the superintendent office, and they told him, okay, in a month you can go out, you can get out of jail. And he was surprised. How come? I have a sentence of 20 years, but I've been only here for 5 years. Why are you letting me go? Are you sure you're talking to the right person? And they said, yes, it's you. I said, well, why are you letting me go so early? Because you are an offender of the government, but you're also a servant of the government, and the service is now exceeding your offense. Therefore, you're now eligible to be liberated from jail. So we may be worried about our anarthas, whatever they are, and we may scratch our head out to get rid of them, but devotional service carry its own power, its own potency, and also we receive instruction on how to avoid offenses. It's not like a blind just chanting Hare Krishna, but it's procedures. We offend the devotees. We know we have to approach that particular devotee and do the right thing. But the idea is that devotional system, devotional power is there in the performance of devotional service, and it's not really cannot really be stopped by anything material, as we know. So we have to really have that understanding. Now, if it depends on the pleasure of our spiritual master to get the power to overcome our anarthas, then the next question is, what is the items that are pleasurable to the spiritual master? So on one side, we have Prabhupada give instruction on chanting 16 rounds, following the four-legged principle. So if someone does that, it's automatically pleasing Prabhupada. And then go into the whole morning program as much as possible. Or if you cannot have a full morning program, sometime in Kali Yuga, life circumstances is that we are away from devotees, or we cannot have a full morning program, well, you can have, take your japa and chant more rounds. Instead of chanting 16 rounds, you can chant 32 rounds, 4 hours. Because the morning program is 4 hours, basically, so you can have your spiritual program maybe a little modified a little bit. And then as soon as you can resume to following like we do here in Mayapur. We have a very wonderful morning program that's very always uplifting every day. So, and then there's a Bhagavatam class that also is very pleasurable. The Bhagavatam class is the most pleasurable part of the morning program for me, because you sit down, you don't have to run around like we do with the whole morning program. Twirl around, run around, jump around, you know what I mean? Takes a lot of energy to do that. But Bhagavatam class, you just sit down and you hear. It's very pleasurable. But I don't know if you're feeling pleasure by hearing my class, but I say feeling pleasure giving my class to you, Vaishnavas. So now, there's another aspect of pleasing the spiritual master is, it's also like a win-win situation where we ourselves benefiting from serving the Guru. The Guru, Prabhupada, he wanted us to help him please his Guru, Bhaktisiddhanta. So when we do that, we actually are subservient to Prabhupada, and we are sacrificing our part for him, for his part. But it's not exactly like that, because simultaneously there's a reciprocation from Prabhupada and Krishna when we surrender to them. So we are benefited also. Now, the idea that maybe now is getting a little more complicated, and I may not be able to explain it properly, but I'm going to try to explain it, is that because we're in a pioneering stage, many elements sometimes may be not available to execute our lives. I'll give you an example. You may have some Grihastha devotee and may have children, and now it's time to send them to school, but there's no Gurukul in the area, or maybe a group of devotees, Grihastha also, and they may be living in an area and there's no real devotee business to make money, or they may not be a peaceful environment, maybe it's in a city, And then now he has different needs, but then the element of fulfilling these needs are not present. So what to do? Well, that's called the pioneering stage. The pioneers, when we had an image of a pioneer, is somebody who comes from Europe and goes to North America, and he gets there, and there's nothing. There's just forest, and the native of that land, the Indians, or not really the Indians, but the people who live there, and there's nothing. So they have to create everything to satisfy to live there. So they cut down the forest, they take the stump out, and they plant their seeds that they brought over, and they build their house from what the trees they cut, and they do everything because there's nothing there. It's called pioneering. So Prabhupada is the best example of pioneering. He came, but there was nothing. And then so he had to, somehow with Krishna's help, he had to create everything for us and for to manifest the movement of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. So, going back to the example of these grihasthas, so they may decide, okay, well, let's get together, let's make money together, whatever way we can, either is selling paraphernalia or whatever. It may not be like a devotional way to do it, but anyway, they do it. They gather some money, they buy some land, and then they pay for the land, and then they move there. And then while they're there, they keep on collecting money, doing their things. But then, if they want to be good grihasthas, they have to give spiritual education to their children. So they start a gurukul, and then they build a temple, and then they are in charge of the economic needs, because ISKCON is not really meant to give economic need to the grihasthas. Although in the material world, as far as education is concerned, it's everybody's duty to pay taxes, even those who have no children in the material world. They pay taxes, and part of this tax goes for the educational system. Because if you put all the burden of the educational system finances on the householder, it's not what the non-devotees do. It's not what the government do. It's too much. In the material world, they have grants for colleges, they have subsidies, and they have percentage of the tax of the population is reserved for education, regardless if you have children or not. So we can maybe take a clue from this also, that the money that has been handled can part of it, like in Mayapur, for example, my daughter was working for the international school last year for 1 whole year. She was being paid 80 cents an hour. Being paid 80 cents an hour. She was getting a free apartment and free lodging. So if you want to have a good school, like people here in Mayapur, the residents of Mayapur, they have concerns, they have needs. One of them is to educate their children, and the money, it's very hard to make money, Lakshmi in Mayapur. You have to go away, maybe 6 miles out of 12, and come back here. It's called a pioneering stage. Maybe in 50 years from now, it won't be like that. Everything will be taken care of. But right now, it's part of what we have to deal with. So when we roll up our sleeve and we create facility to fulfill our need, even if these needs are so-called material needs, because we expand the periphery of ISKCON, now it's expanded to a farm community, then it's pleasing to the spiritual master. The effort that we put, the anxiety we take on to, instead of sending the children to Karmi school, which would be easier, no, we don't want to do that. We want them to do. So we take the pain and the anxiety to fulfill Prabhupada's order. So when we engage our mind, senses, body, life, resources to please the spiritual master, that is how we get rid of our anarthas. This is how we can transcend our conditioning, our background as fallen souls in this material world. We were raised in maybe with bad parents, bad teachers, bad friends, bad everything. That can be counteracted by simply trying to please the spiritual master the best we can. And like I said, there's a return. The return is the material needs will be taken care of in a way that it will be purifying of the material needs. So, and then the sannyasis, they have a different field. They also has to take great pain to try to please Prabhupada. They have their own field of action with preaching more directly. They're more free to fully engage themselves in preaching activities. Sometimes they take managerial position and they create even their own community with their disciple. They create facility for them. They also become a recipient of the mercy of Srila Prabhupada because they're also giving their energy according to their situation. So it's a very wonderful opportunity that we have as spiritual, eternal spirit soul that we all are, that now we have a chance to become self-realized. We have to become a chance to purify ourselves. All the elements are there. So that's what I was really wanted to talk about in my class. So right now it's 8:45, a little early, but we can still stop here. Maybe one last thing about maybe the present situation of the International Society for Krishna Consciousness, contrasting with the old days, the difference between the crowd of non-devotees out there, what it used to be 40 years ago and what they are now. What is the difference? 40 years ago, there was no internet, there was no cell phone, smartphone, there was not even any phone. You had to use a phone booth, put a quarter in it or a dime to phone. So there's a difference because the social difference that before the availability of entertainment was not so easily available. If you want to entertain yourself, you have to go to the football game, or you have to go to the movies. You have to walk and get out of your house and pay the money and get entertained. But nowadays, entertainment is instant. There's Netflix, there's iDivision TV, there's the whole wide web, what do you call it? Called the web, the spider web. And you have also virtual reality for the young boys and teenagers to get involved with. And there's so much easily available distraction and so much easily available choices to make. The mentality is you see so many things on the internet and there's so many varieties of knowledge, so many items, and we can take a little bit of every one of them without taking full focus on one item. So it's more confusing. People are not ready to, like before, they were more focused maybe and on receiving one type of knowledge, the Hare Krishna knowledge. That's all there was compared to what they have today, and so on and so forth. So the crowd is different, and we see also there's some sociological differences in our movement. At least in North America, our temples are more devoid of devotees than they used to be before. People are not so much inclined to join a community or a spiritual organization. They may be afraid of the hierarchy of authority or whatever. Nowadays, you can't criticize or evaluate anybody. They don't take any criticism, high or low. So there's a certain mentality they have, and therefore the preaching is transforming itself a little bit. For example, we notice one thing is the non-devotees are attracted to chanting mantras. The kirtan phenomena is present in many places. And then devotees use that media of their attraction to chant mantras. They utilize it. They make them chant Hare Krishna or other similar mantras, and they introduce the knowledge in a slower, more convenient way according to time, place, circumstances. And because the mantra is being chanted by them, some contact is there. And then if they're not ready totally to surrender everything, eventually with time and more care and attention. So the preaching movement, Hare Krishna movement, is expanding himself outside our temples. That's what I noticed because I travel with the Festival of India in North America and I see all the temples. So there's a transformation. We can see sometimes, it's going down, but it may not be going down. It may be simply transforming itself before we get the full picture. And I will stop here and I'll leave time if you have any comments, any questions. Feel free. So we have a microphone here. So somebody want to take the microphone?
Well, thank you, Ghosh Thakur. That was very informative and very useful. The point I appreciate is that there has been so much evolution in the ambient culture, the Kali Yuga culture, and even within our movement. And now we're playing catch up. That there's a prominence, or there's a consensus now for devotee care that really we have to try and fulfill all the needs of devotees so that they can feel totally fulfilled and supported in their spiritual progress. Because actually I saw how some devotees left because they felt that no one really cared about them, that they could be there or not, and it would not make a difference for anyone else. So now there's a very strong focus on devotee care, and it's about time, and it's very good. Of course, it has to be adapted to place and time, etc., etc. So that's a very nice thing. And actually, coming here to Mayapur, we see there's so much loving exchanges and some really beautiful, devotional bonds that are deepened. And that's really what it's all about. So that's what we have to offer to the rest of the world. Genuine relationships that fulfill the ultimate purpose of life, spiritual perfection. So that's there. And I appreciate that you gave some valuable, information in that direction. I don't have any other questions, but I think I will.
Okay. Thank you, Prabhu. Maharaj over there. No, Maharaj over there. Maharaj.
Hare Krishna. Thank you for your class.
Thank you, Maharaj.
A question I had was, a lot of your class was about pleasing the spiritual master. So besides following, Krishna consciousness basic structure, is there any other way that we can understand we are pleasing our spiritual master? Or put it in a negative, is there any way we can know we're displeasing the spiritual master?
Well, like I was explaining during class, the process of pioneering the movement of Krishna consciousness and creating facilities, and the effort that it takes, it may be physical, it may be a physical effort, it may be like sometime taking a risk, doing the needful, sometimes is like understanding what the spiritual master really wants from us, not always easy, because we sometimes want to avoid the harsh reality that there's some groundworks that needs to be done. Give you an example, like in Bhagavad Gita, Krishna says, Tesham niyabhiyuktanam, that He'll supplies what you need. Those who are devoted, He supplies what they need and protects what they have. But it doesn't mean that you sit down and do nothing and Krishna, by chanting Hare Krishna like a lot of rounds, then Krishna will automatically give you all the money you want. Krishna also wants you to, if you need money, if you need Lakshmi, then you need to go to the material process of acquiring it, which means that usually people exchange monetary remuneration for skills that you have to offer them. So you have to acquire skills. If you have skills that fills a need in the material world, it is lucrative. So you have to go through the process, even if it's material, it seems to be material, going to receive some training of some kind, and then you have to apply, make the resumes, and sometimes you have to go out there. Sometimes it's like you're serving, you're going to serve non-devotees, you're going to be with them. But if you want that money, Krishna may want you to do this. And you may, in a neophyte stage, you may think, oh, that Prabhu, don't do that, it's all material. But actually, it's, if you have a clearer understanding, you actually understand that there's nothing really material. If you can be connected to Krishna. If you cannot be connected to Krishna because of sinful involvement, then you cannot connect it. But if you can connect a way to fulfill that need, even if it seems to be material, Krishna is pleased, and it's not contaminating. Actually, if you try to avoid it and not make the money, and then your children and dependents suffer because you're not going through this surrendering process of going through the material energy to do it, then you become contaminated. Then you become the loser. So, in this way, like, you know, we know this principle that false renunciation means seeing something as material when it could be connected to Krishna. So if he can be connected to Krishna, that's how Krishna consciousness will more effectively spread without neglecting anything. So, that answer your question, Maharaj? A little bit, not too much. Anyway, that's the best I could do. Okay, somebody else. But do you have more to say, maybe? Maybe you can have some realization about it. You're just like, we're asking a true question for your own benefit? Uh-huh. Yeah. 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 Yes, boy, I totally relate to what you're saying. We can take an example of that. Is that the situation in North America? Most of our temples are occupied by devotees, Vaishnavas of Hindu descent. Take over the worship, take over the facilities in many places. So it is, in one sense, it is natural that was destined to happen because many Vaishnavas of Hindu descent migrate to the West, and in the West they're surrounded by all this material energy and they can't relate to it very well. And ISKCON is a refuge for them. So they end up taking shelter of ISKCON because they relate very nicely to it. They identify. And then, but they're also very expert in management. They have degrees, they're intelligent. So the tendency is to take over. So in one sense, it's not bad, it's okay. But also simultaneously, Prabhupada's pleasure is also that you have to preach to the indigenous people of that country. If you're not making local devotees that are born there, then you're not really fulfilling Prabhupada's order. So you cannot, our temple may be maintained nicely, but are you actually really doing everything that could be done? Or is it missing? That's an example they relate to? Yeah. We all relate to that example. We all know about that. So yeah, well, what will happen if we don't please the Guru, then there will be a feeling of incompleteness. And if we do please them, there's a feeling of we know we please them. One last point in that regard before we close 9 o'clock is that I had a vegetarian lunch program in Vancouver at two prominent universities, Simon Fraser University and University of British Columbia. and I would cook at a temple, offer the prasadam at the altar, and go to the university and serve it out. And I would sometimes feed like as many as 200 people there. So when the program was finished, I felt fulfilled. I felt happy. I felt now I did the maximum I could do to please my guru. I knew my guru was pleased because he wanted prasadam distribution, and I have book on the table also, and he could buy cookbook. And that feeling was inside my heart. When I came out of there, I was very peaceful, very fulfilled, very happy. That's how we know we please our guru. It's not on a mental platform. It's a spiritual experience. So it's 9 o'clock, so I have to go also. Thank you very much for attending my class. Oh, glory to Prabhupada.
Very good. Hare Krishna.
Jaya Prahlad Maharaj, Jaya Prahlad Maharaj, Prahlad Maharaj, Jaya Prahlad Maharaj. Jaya Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada, Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada. Jaya Jaya Prabhupada, 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 Prabhupada. O Nitai Gara Haribo,